I'll bring on our first guest, which is Miss Gauri Bajaj Mitra, who is the co-founder of Trampoline Design. Ma'am, please. Then can we have Deepika Datta Kapoor, who is she leads the global US strategy in the new gen software technologies. Then Mr. Ronak Singh, who is the creative designer AVP for Naukri.com. And we have Mr. Rajat Agarwal, who's the practice head, UX design to the new. And we have the moderator, Ms. Shalini Singh, which we all know. So I think the panel discussion is essentially going to revolve around the truths and myths of communication design as it is practiced in the industry. I think in college we can equip you with a lot of skills and a lot of ideas here, but there are some things that you will only learn when you're actually in the industry. So perhaps to help you a little bit to kind of set some expectations, we have our guests with us. And with that, I think I will hand it over to you,
Sure.
Shalini. Yes.
Can you hear me? Lovely. So, as Abdish just talked about the topic of discussion, I think I'm going to dive right in. Firstly, I'd just like to thank you for taking out your precious time and being with us. And it was really interesting hearing all your comments and your insights on the various projects. So, thank you so much. And now we'll just dive right into the topic of truths and myths. And maybe I would start with you, Rajat, first.
Sure.
If you could tell us about two truths and one myth and keep it as a secret which one is what. And, we can get into a discussion and find out what is what later.
Well, does it have to be about the area of expertise or?
It could be about anything, which, generally in your studio, what you find about.
All right. So two truths and one myth. Okay. So you're all final year students, right? So you'll be given a lot of time to do all the kind of things that you've been doing in your college. So there'll be lots and lots of time for research, and you'll be able to go out for field studies and interact with the end users. That is one. The other thing is you wouldn't really get the clients who give you a lot of freedom in terms of all the creative freedom that we just saw in all the projects here, and it will all be about business objectives. So you'll be chasing you'll be chasing deadlines, you'll be chasing budget constraints and so on, right? The third one, you'll most of the times you'll be exhausted. Can you just speak up a little bit? All right. Okay. So am I audible at the back? All right. So okay. So one of them is a myth and two of them are industry facts for you.
Would anyone like to have a go at which one is the myth and which one are the truth? Sure.
I believe the first one is a myth and the rest two are the truths of the.
Well, that is correct.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. I think it was very, very direct for them, but I'll go with the next panelist. Deepika, if you could.
Sure, thank you for having me. So, two truths and one myth. Design strategy is not product strategy. And second could be all pages should be accessible in 3 clicks. Right? Okay. And third one could be maybe I would say stakeholders and customers are not our users.
Anyone, even the panelists, can zoom. Do we have to dig it out to as guesses, or should we just speak our experience? I think we can open it to either ways. If you'd like to talk about your experiences, why not? Okay. Would anyone like to have a go at which one is the truth and which one is the myth?
Let's hear some perspective from the students.
Sure. You can, voice your opinion or your thoughts in the same. Anybody? Anybody in the audience?
I would like to go for the answers, but if stakeholders and customers are not the users, then who has? So, right totally admit, I am not sure, but if customers are not doing users, who are?
Okay, that's a myth. Let's say a bit more and then maybe we can.
Okay.
Work.
Does anyone want to elaborate on that?
Should I kind of repeat once again? Will that help?
Yeah.
Design strategy is not product strategy. Then another one was all pages should be clickable, should be accessible in 3 clicks. And your stakeholders and your customers are not your users. Okay. Is it on?
Would anyone from the panelists also would like to?
I'd like to hear her points of view.
Okay, then I think we just wait for your.
Any one more guess, I think. Any wild guess? Okay, so I think I'll take. The myth is all pages should be clickable in 3 clicks is a myth. It's a UX myth. What is most important is the information should be available. If information is available even in 7 clicks, the user doesn't have a problem. Till it is constructed in a more structured way, the user can continuously move ahead. I can give you an example of just imagine if you have to uh, access or submit a survey. While filling a survey, you would worry about, you just scroll vertically and worry, oh my god, it's a long form, I don't want to fill. Right? But if it's a very small sections and it just shows you the progress that you have accomplished 25% of it with each passing step, and it just has 1 or 2 questions with every step, it becomes more easy. Right? So
Right.
I can add a bit more of an example for the UX designer, and since I represent Newgen, which is into banking and insurance space, so whenever you fill a bank forms online, if your form is segregated into information, which is your personal information, your educational background, and about your finances, if it is broken in 3 steps or 5 steps, you will find it more easy to fill in. In case if it is just a one long scroll, it becomes a bit difficult for the user. So it's a myth that everything should be accessible in 3 pages, in 3 clicks. It can be more or less, but this is what you'll always hear in the industry also, where customers will come to you. Oh my God, I just need a view which has 3 clicks. I don't want more than 3. But then there is a right reason behind it, where you, as a coming in as an expert from the design background, can explain about the cognitive load that comes in when there is a one free scroll that appears. Okay.
Thank you so much. I think that was very informative. So definitely clarity and one a bit dismissed and a lot more clarity on the subject now. So I'll go on to Rona for the same question again.
So, hi everyone. So let's change this format a little bit, right? So I'll say one line, and then you guys identify which one is a truth or myth, right? So right now, all of us designers are designing for not for users. All of the designers are designing not for the users.
Myth or truth?
Is it a myth or is it a truth?
Okay.
Anybody else? Like everybody shares the same sentiment?
It sure seems like bit.
Okay. So right now, everybody of us as designers or UX, UI or communication designers are designing for agents right now. So ultimately, we are designing for agents who are not even going to read what's there on what all colors do we have. They are going to experience the way hierarchy is laid out within the page, whatever we see on in any banner, in any landing page. So they are going to read and access and understand from the hierarchy and everything that is written over there, and then understand. Right now, if you see ChatGPT or Claude, anybody has access to AI tools. They all have gotten MCPs. Now, MCPs is Model Context Protocol, and every other AI LLM is accessing your websites without even you opening that website. Right. So that's the future, and that is where most of you would be designing for the future, and that's how these all these principles become a core part of your practice right now.
Right. So this is extremely disruptive of
Yes.
how we know design till now, because of this intervention of AI.
Yes.
Yes, very interesting.
Second is a good design portfolio will help you land a job.
Yep.
Okay, so events like Unfold will definitely, but okay, so yes, it's a myth, and I'll tell you why. Um, so when portfolios reach any recruiter or any hiring manager, what happens is your work is already seen over there, and that's why probably you are selected for a second round of discussion. What matters in the discussion is how your thinking is there. How are you thinking to arrive at the portfolio that you have showcased? And especially within today's times when every beautiful interface and every sort of good looking graphic or visual is very easy to replicate. The thinking part is something that we are looking for particularly, and that's where it's very important for us to have the thinking part of it as well. The third is of course it's a truth, that's clear, but the third is that an underrated skill, whatever we see in design and whether it is communication or visual, is linguistics or maybe content, as we say. Um, Everything is right now, wherever we start designing, it very much matters how much content or what all copy, what all words are we using to not just visual, but yes, what are the words that are used there. So couple of projects, what we saw on the floor also, there were a lot of projects that had very nice content first, things that were laid out along with visuals. So of course they come with a complete package and they're able to articulate their projects and thoughts very well. So yeah.
Thank you. That was very well put. And I think, again, a lot of new information dispelled and uh, creates a lot of good awareness for all our students. So thank you so much.
I'll just add something to the point that you have made, and specifically to the portfolio part. I think when your portfolio reaches us or any of the organization, the hiring team or the managers, your portfolio speaks about you. It is your brand. So, in your absence, your portfolio talks about you, your personality. So it should be it should showcase your strengths, your way of functioning. So that should come up very clearly, and you should not get too much influenced by having a more generic template, which I always tell to the designers that please play with your strengths, because in your absence, that is what will be your face to begin with. And then it can lead you to your future conversations with the team in any of the organizations. Yeah.
So one more point on the portfolio part.
Yes.
So a lot of the times when we receive portfolios, we see a lot of emphasis is given to the final outcome, right? So the aesthetics, the visual, point of it is all there, but we would like to see the iterations that were use to reach that final state, right? So rather than focusing only on the final state, the iterations or all the shortcomings, yeah, the brainstorming should also be there, and that should very much be a part of the portfolio.
Very true. Basically, they're trying to pick your brains and see what is the process, what is your thinking, way of thinking, and how wide can you go, and how deep can you go, rather than just the final project. Today, with the kind of tools available to us, making a good looking thing is very easy for everybody. But if you can somehow instill the process that you follow and the iterations that you have done, which really showcases your way of thinking, that will make all the
Absolutely,
difference.
absolutely. How did you diverge and converge to the final outcome?
Absolutely. What are the choices you made?
Absolutely. Yes.
True. Yeah. Thank you so much. Um, who is left? Gauri, yes.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I just want to give, because I was told that we have to come up with examples from our own, experiences. So I'm going to follow your format. I'm going to give you three myths or truths, and then I'll tell you why. So we run an industrial design and communication design consultancy. So the experiences are actually from both. So one statement is research the customer. Is this a myth or a truth? Yes, ideally we need to research the customer, but in our experience, um, I'm going to twist it around and say it's a myth, because in reality you have to be the customer. So with industrial design especially, we found that, for a large international company, there were researchers from Japan. And we've taken a workshop for them, and they found that in their research, when you have television sets and these, middle income groups buy television sets or a fridge for their homes, they found a red teacup on every fridge or gadget which was new. And the researchers thought, well, we should put an LED light, or something red on every product, but that's really not needed. So sometimes you really have to be the customer. So that was just, obviously it came out in the workshop. It wasn't actually executed, but you really have to be the customer, empathize with the customer. I think that's really important, and the consumer. And same goes for visual design. The second statement is design for India. Would you only design for India specifically when you have an Indian audience? So in our mind, it's a myth, because very often there are dualities. And I think with a homogeneous consumer, you kind of end up putting in Western influences with Indian ones, which is why something like a Good Earth is a huge success. I think it's a good sort of marriage of both. In our personal experience, we created this sort of wellness brand called Tula Journey. They started off with journals and affirmation cards. Now there are various products. But we realized the more Indian we wanted to keep it, we also wanted to sort of reach out to a larger audience. And that was very important. And also the audience in India is very discerning. Largely the kind of audience that we were trying to reach out, and there are a lot of Western influences. You can't deny that completely. So only craft-led or Indian perhaps doesn't work at a design level. At a fashion or other levels, yes, perhaps. But I think everyone is marrying both. And the third is really, I mean, this is just a truth, so I'm just going to lay it out there. I think design is as much about context as it is about the consumer. So the context really becomes king, which is where, in the television sets, for instance, I mean, they didn't get the context, and perhaps inquiry and context is very important.
Absolutely. You know what you mentioned about the Japanese company, and this is just
I mean, that was an international company, but the researchers,
right.
I wouldn't reveal more, but the researchers were from Japan.
Right.
Working on
I just wanted to add to that, because I had worked on a project which was similar, which was actually a coffee table book for Whirlpool, because, internationally, Whirlpool couldn't understand why India is asking for all these graphics on the fridges.
Yeah.
And they had a really tough time explaining it to their counterparts all over the world, that Indians want these flowers and all this. And so we actually did an entire book explaining the context or where is it coming from, and how we are just so used to having pattern everywhere, whether it's our buildings or our interiors or our craft or our clothes, which is very, very diverse from anywhere else, really. So kind of similar for
We actually did similar projects for Samsung back in the day, and we did for Samsung India and Indonesia. So Indonesia was another market which liked embellishment, but that's
Yeah.
again a certain segment.
Southeast Asia again.
Yeah, but also a certain segment, right? Like the context becomes really important. Who's your consumer in that segment of fridges, for instance?
Right. Right.
Maybe a higher end consumer wants only, uh, plain fridges and muted colors, and that is really the case.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So context is very important.
Yeah. Even in the category that they have in India, they have the really patterned ones at a lower cost level. The more high end they go, they start becoming more and more global. So definitely.
Yes.
Yes, it's
So the context and region. So I kind of a bit differ on your second point regarding the region. Maybe so that is where context becomes equally important. Yeah, I mean, as context. Because if I talk from the region perspective, becoming the user would be important, but also understanding your customer is equally important. So I'll take an example. Obviously, this was an example more on the industrial side. I'll take the example of maybe into the healthcare or maybe in a bank. Let's start with a bank only before I move to the healthcare. A region or a bank uh, account opening information would be very different what a bank would request from Indian citizens as compared to from US. In India, the questions or your KYCs would cover information like Aadhaar card and so on, while when you move to any other country in US, it would be SSN number that they'll ask for. So obviously your country, region, context in which space you are talking about, understanding your customer becomes very important. In the domain that you are actually creating a solution will equally become important. Similar is the case for healthcare also. The way the insurance policies would work in India as compared to US would be very, very different. Your addresses, the way they work, your contact information, or mobile numbers, if I go even at the field level, it is very different. We call it PIN numbers. In US, it is zip numbers. So all that information in the digital space starts becoming different. How you put the content in that.
absolutely very system specific according to the
Absolutely.
context.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring in a perspective of a different industry. No, therefore, it's tech.
Absolutely. This context is king, like you
Yes.
said.
So context takes the lead
Absolutely.
from this.
Absolutely. So I think we've kind of, anyone else has any questions on this before we move on to some, other open questions? Anybody? If not, then let's delve into, I just have a couple of questions for you all, and we'll open it to the panelists, and after that, maybe to the audience. And the first one, of course, the most talked about at the moment. Let's talk about AI.
I
Yeah, let's talk about it.
asked everybody to guess the word.
They probably would have got it right. So, yeah, it really is the flavor of the year or years, I would say. Um, your perspective in AI can be exist without it. For how long will it remain a slave before it becomes a master? So, just open it to all of you and anyone who would like to go first on it.
Yeah. You want to go?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Because we recently at To The New, we just had a conference on designing with AI, and I think some of you from IIAD also attended it. So on, to the point answers to your questions, if we can do without it, I don't think, not anymore, right?
That's not
So we are seeing that shift happen even in the industry, wherein the clients are all okay about us using AI. In fact, they're asking if you're leveraging AI, and if you are doing so, why aren't the outcomes or the deliverables, there's, why isn't there a faster
Turnaround,
turnaround
sure.
time, right? So we have definitely gone beyond, and we are sort of educating all our resources on the usage of AI tools and so on and so forth, right? And so I feel that we've moved past that whole debate of whether it's just a bubble or it's just another phase, right? It's definitely more than a bubble or a phase, right? And to your other part of the question, whether it'll be a slave to us or whether it'll become the mark,
yeah.
right? Right. I feel that it's neither of it is true. I think both these contrasting comparisons, they are sort of like extreme. So what we feel is that it's going to be sort of like an ally, right? And even in the way we converse with it is more like we are,
Like a
you know,
friend
yeah, or maybe like an
or
interpreter
colleague.
junior, right? So how we direct a junior resource in the industry on how to do move around certain stuff to get the desired output or a deliverable. It is exactly the same way we do it with
But that is what's
agents,
happening
right?
now. But, my question is going forward with so much speculation about it, not listening to us. That is where I'm coming from.
Right. I feel that uh, maybe in the distant future that could be a case, but in the foreseeable future I don't see that to be the case. What I see is that the roles would be blurred, and that's what we were discussing even before the panel discussion. So now what designers were sort of responsible for, those lines are sort of blurring, right? So a designer can code using AI, and a developer can design using AI. So those stark difference in responsibilities is sort of merging now, and in the coming days the industry would see lots of new roles. So for example, you must already been hearing this word of AI design engineer, right? So the role of a designer and an engineer is blurring now. So this kind of change would happen in the foreseeable future, and yeah, this is what I had to say.
So, if an engineer can design and a designer can engineer, what kind of new roles do you expect to be out there? So then again, are you saying that it is the thinking? Again, you go back to the context and the concept, and the idea becomes king.
Right, right. So you could say that. So more than an idea, I feel that uh, what needs to be delivered, more thought would have to be given to that, and some of the things that we sort of did not heed to initially, or like before the age of AI, would be given more thought to, like understanding the stakeholders better, understanding the business context more, and then using all the technology you have at hand to deliver to the clients better. Specifically, in the industrial sense of it.
So maybe because the variables are so much easier to tackle now
Right,
because
right, right. So
speed is at your side.
exactly. So, for example, even the clients, what they expect is that initially we had to have domain experts aligned to a particular project. So, for example, if there's a project in banking, for example, all the resources aligned to that project had to had that in-depth knowledge about the banking domain, right?
Right.
But that sort of knowledge can be gained very quickly now, right? And you don't really need to have that knowledge. You just need to be a good executor with all the AI agents at your service. So those sort of things, that sort of shift is happening now.
True. I think maybe, the difference between knowledge and information is going to get even more starker.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, information will become at your fingertips. So, anyone else
Yeah,
would like
I'll
to have
take
a
it
go at
from
it?
here. I'll take it from here. Okay. So we all have, as designers, we had that scare. What will happen when AI kind of start taking designers' job? And I think we all would agree that it's an artificial intelligence. It is learning, but the learning level has kind of changed where we were 6 months back and where we are today around it. The shift has happened really, really fast. But for designers to be scared, frankly speaking, I believe you should be scared on the perspective that if till now you were just thinking about being the executors, being just following the trends, then there is definitely a concern. What you need to start thinking, it's a kind of a mindset shift. Start thinking on the lines that how you can be a visionary, how you can start thinking on what the final output should be. So AI can help you start creating, or having someone next to you who can brainstorm with you, who can ideate with you. So, for you to do a quick churn around of ideas is helpful, but blindly just following it may not help, because we have tried it, we have tested it in our way of functioning, we have gone really, really deep. And what I've realized is the role of UI might kind of change, but now you'll see almost all designs look similar. All illustrations have started looking similar. Until unless you put the right information, if you're not clear what kind of design style you are looking for, you might not be able to guide or prompt GPTs accordingly. So your vision, your thinking has to change. That will become very important. You have to be very goal oriented in this case. For you, how you can do that is you have to get your fundamentals correct. You have to understand what are the different design styles that exist, what are the different techniques that exist, and then start building over it. I'm a very strong preacher on ethical AI. It has to be used in a responsible way. So, where does that lie for a designer? Uh, Nowadays, all the designs we look at, if we talk about digital, mobile apps, websites, AI will give you everything in purple tones, gradient, round edges, shadows, glows, and everything will look beautiful. So, when we talk about the role is kind of changing, even analysts, even engineers can build that, which is fine. But once you start going deep into it, bringing in that human factor, behavioral science is what will become further more important, because setting off any information in the right way from the UX perspective is what is important. The interactions become very, very important in this case. What kind of information you are putting in. So, AI is if I have to put it in a very, very basic language, Iron Man, I believe most of you would be able to relate to it. I can see a lot of kind of dancing on this. So great. Uh, so, with Iron Man, see, Iron Man had a very powerful suit. Yeah. It did not make him Superman or a superhuman. It just gave him some additional powers. That is what AI is gonna do for you to bring in a lot of efficiency. It will give you a lot of support, power to create something with quickly or ideate mode. But then what needs to be created? How it needs to be created? What is a problem that you are trying to solve? Is where the designers have to start becoming more thinkers, more visionaries, on the strategy side of things. Start moving from UI UX designer to product designer, product strategist is where the journey would be. So, understanding the business aspect of things, revenue, business models, these are the terms that you should start now going a bit more deep. So, this is, I can keep on going with it, but I do understand the time. So, I'll just pass it to you. Ayara. Okay.
Would you like to?
So, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
So I think what ma'am said, 100% I agree to all of this. Um, it reminds me of a job post I saw a couple of months back. OpenAI was hiring content strategists.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. It was a big buzz that, an LLM, a company that has taught us to, use that chat GPT for their own strategy is hiring content strategists for themselves. Right. So turns out to that same point, what we are trying to, the panel is trying to highlight, that thought and, having that vision behind is extremely important.
Absolutely.
In this room also, I've seen a lot of projects from a visual communication design perspective who have made websites, who have made some sort of digital experiences to have along with their submission. And that is a clear way of showing that everybody is able to do everything right now. It depends on the strategy part of things, and how you would want to envision it to be a complete product in itself,
Sure.
right? And also, I also like to your question where you said that AI slave or master. I was reading it somewhere that AI is the last invention that humans have done. Okay, I'm still yet to figure out the gravitas of what this line is, but okay, the thought was, till date there have been multiple inventions that humans have done.
I wonder if that's a myth or a truth.
Okay, so it was a statement. If you can take it either ways, but it's time that will tell.
Right.
But there have been a lot of innovations that humans have done, right, from industrial revolutions or from a lot of doing some changes in the behavioral aspects as well. But uh, every time any new innovation was there, it was said that everything is disruptive now. To khatam ho jayega,
Very true.
people have imagined the worst side of things.
Absolutely.
From advertising also, I can quote you, like, for example, if we all remember, ads used to be 60 seconds of ads. 1 second of 1 minute of ads used to be there. The duration cut down to 30 seconds right now on TV. And that is why people, they feared that attention span will be reduced right now. And with, a lot of other formats also coming up, these things will definitely happen. But now, AI will definitely right now is going to improve itself. AI is going to win away. Now, if you follow Elon Musk's new innovations as well, he's sending robots onto space, and robots will build robots. And that is how our only role here is, the differentiator is how we think, what value we can add in the final product. So
Very
yes.
true, very true. I think both of you would, the thing that was coming to my mind is like, sky's the limit and singularity has disappeared. You're not one person now because AI gives you an entire team to do whatever you feel like. But it's what you want to do. That is what you need to question. And I think your benchmarks need to be much higher. It's not just one design correction here and there because that everybody can do. So you really need to think out of the box and create stuff which is fundamentally a game changer. That I think is what real innovation. And the other thing is personality and craft. So introduce a little of yourself into whatever you're making because otherwise everything else is a cookie cut design. And that's not going to work because an engineer can do it. Earlier, we used to, in our generation, talk about DTP guys, people who knew how to use software. But this is a much bigger beast. It can do a lot more. So if you really want to up your game, it has to be whether it's craft or it's something innovative and unique to stay ahead of game. Yeah. So yes.
Question two.
Yes.
You mentioned that robots can innovate. So, what's your opinion on he is AI gonna create inventions like big invention works?
So right now, what is happening around, if you notice, have you noticed this funny thing that a model that you were using, a ChatGPT version that you were using a year back, is now smarter?
Yeah.
So that is fundamentally because we have trained it in a way that it has learned from what we have responded to. And that is where a GPT 4 has made 4.1 and a 4.1 has made 4.2 because of relearning and a lot of data. Now, within the researches that we do is a very small research group, but imagine scaling up to billions and zillions of audience sets. How much data, how much learning is getting there right now? That's probably the only reason GPT is free right now, right? It is accessible right now, and because main goal is acquisition, user data training. So that is where AI is right now getting trained on our patterns, and probably it will become smarter, of course. And that's how, where the differentiator is, how we are able to use AI in our own terms. Like how we drive a car. We have an option of, walking down.
Just a question coming to my mind when you talk about it's nothing is for free, right? It's learning from you. So will there come a point when it feels it's learned everything from you?
and it's completely my feeling. I feel yes.
So then you're
That's
done.
okay. Sorry, yeah. So my statement would be that's okay if it has learned. Just extending your driving the car example. There are autonomous cars also.
Right now, yeah. So that's
They are driving, right?
coming to.
But the destination, you are the one who is deciding on the destination where you want to go. The track, the path is somewhere the car can kind of take care of it.
I actually, at some point, I feel that you're very optimistic, Olivia. Because if it can better itself, you think it won't be able to make decisions for itself.
It would be, but then what is the concern over here is what I'm trying to understand. That's okay if it will help me decide. Right now, when we are making purchases online, e-commerce, it is recommending us that with this shop you can take this.
So these are current scenarios.
Yeah, so these are recommendations for you, right? And we don't realize, but most of our decisions are influenced by those recommendations also.
True, true.
So that is what we just need to take an action. Okay, this is the complete package. We would like to opt or we don't want to opt. That is the final decision that we are taking. Decision, I strongly feel, would remain in control of the human.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
That's
it
an
will.
optimistic thought.
will.
I hope
There's
so. I
just
hope
a
you're right.
strategy, and it is up to us. That is where AI governance come into picture. So we were talking about AI thinkers, visionaries, and all. So there is another role for a designer is to think about AI governance, how it can be governed. The responsibility becomes a lot larger than we can even imagine. But yeah.
I will be I remember you talking about Kangai, like you were a picture of using AI ethically. I just want to know what that means in your way through because I think right now the lights are extremely very not clear.
Yeah. I think the way we put up prompts, the way we put in or look for information, at times, as humans, we tend to kind of just add or just for fun, we add or ask any kind of information. So I'll give you a very basic example. Uh, how biases get created, right? The minute we start searching for information which in a statements, the way we put a prompt, the language that we put already has a bias around it. For example, we are searching for American women, black skin or darker skin. That is what Microsoft also did. They started playing around with the results, ensuring that American women should always not be shown with white skin. Let's have some darker tones also, which resulted into giving results which were, if you would just search for American women, it would just show all darker women. So what happened? The results started changing, and it was all brown women, dark women as a result. And that is where in Senate, Microsoft pulled that down. Google also did a similar mistake in their Google Images search, where is it resulted. So when I talk about ethical and non-ethical, is the kind of prompts, information we put in, we are not thinking long about it. We are not thinking at a distance what will be the impacts of it.
So I just want to add, I mean, what does everyone feel on the panel and otherwise about, this whole, when they took the Japanese style of, who was the Studio Ghibli, which went viral, I think that there was nothing ethical about it. This person has developed in his studio for years or your styles, and those were taken down in minutes and replicated. It just
Yeah.
few seconds.
There was a lawsuit that was filed by
Filed, yeah.
Disney as well, but eventually these companies won, and they won on one condition that whatever they are creating is not as same as you would it's not handmade. So it's a very thin line that they
It's a very fun
that they
and honestly, I personally think it's really not ethical.
and Correct. And that's because we are at the creator side of things. So we understand from an emotional perspective also. But true that feeling is same. But yes, right now, if you ask Gemini to create a Disney themed picture of myself,
Yeah, which is also
uh,
it has its seconds.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I have been in Disney. We've been spending sleepless nights creating what you see on screen. And somebody just writes a prompt and
Yeah, I mean, it's not, there's no way taming the beast, honestly.
exactly.
Yeah, and wherever power rests, that becomes the norm and the narrative shifts. So, yeah, there
But
is.
one more thing to the question that was asked on the ethical use of AI. So between our colleges and the universities and the offices that we work, there's a lot of sensitive data that we have right now. And sometimes what happens, uh, we upload that data on any LLM unknowingly. What's the after use of all of these data? And from an ethical use of that, there have been a lot of norms that organizations are coming up that not to upload any sort of sensitive data online on these LLMs, or either they have a filter layer like a firewall within the organization's Wi-Fi. So that's one small part, but very important part to watch out for, because of course we are sharing our data as simple as we think it is, but it's all learning.
Thank you so much.
But in real world, I think when we talk about any of the users, I think most of us, we don't realize, but we say, okay, as a user, he does this, he would do this, he would click here. So the minute we start adding these he she biases in our conversation, this is the conversation we are having even with GPTs. This is the way we write. He has done this. This is how. So that is how the biases start getting built. So you have to start putting your prompts right, where you talk just from the user language, and either they, him is the word you should avoid, or differentiate between they and him, and just opt for one.
I don't think there's a way to cover something like this. People, how happy for
You try, okay. So what I'll suggest you, maybe what you can do, just try putting in, create a, maybe Mahatma Gandhi in a leather jacket on a bicycle. You were able to do it few months back, but now there is a governance team that sits, and you would not get the real face of Mahatma Gandhi in a leather jacket on a bicycle. So that is where the guardrails have been added.
Wonderful. I just want to request Vishang to join us. He's finally here, so thank you so much. Just like you to introduce yourself to the Kish.
My name is Vishank. Um, I am a visual and motion designer. I lead the visual and motion part at Noon. Noon is a e-commerce platform. I've been in the industry for about 9 years now. Worked with Hotstar. I was with Animal, where I worked with Pranay, who I think some of you must know. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and have a chat with you all.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself. Would you like to have a go at the same topic, Vishang?
Sure. I think ethical things in AI, first of all, like I have a very, very hot opinion on whether generative AI should exist or not. And I really don't think there is a use case for it which is completely justified. Um, Generative AI, I think for me, has created more problems, and like things around how it is being used for deep fakes and stuff like that. That I think it just I have always failed to understand why exactly does a technology like this need to exist, because where it for me it's still yet to see a value that is providing which is beyond all of this, beyond creating just stuff very, very quickly and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, on ethical use of AI, sure, I think we have already discussed that there are guardrails now, and as the technology progresses, there'll be more guardrails. We'll make more mistakes. We'll also
create like more problems, and to solve those problems, we'll create more guardrails. So I think that's the evolution that needs to happen. It is happening right now, which is why we are seeing it, and it's a good thing that we are seeing it, and we are raising questions. The more questions we raise, the more guardrails are built, and the safer our future is. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you so much. I think let's change the topic now. There's been enough of AI.
I've ended off.
So now this one is a little more personal.
He has some question. Somebody has it.
Yes, please.
Please. So, my question is, I think it's this new word everyone can go to AI and become a designer. Like you order to get the information, anyone can become a designer. But what do you think segregates a good designer from a bad designer? Having the AI, having to study everything, but like, what is the one thing you would all agree over that one thing should make you a designer?
Strategy.
Start. How?
So, for example, you have to make a what student are you? Like, no, what course are you studying? Are you studying visual design? Are you studying UI UX? Visual. So, for example, if you have to make a banner, or if you have to make a poster for any of the things, any of the project that you have, right? So, what are the things that you would want to highlight and prioritize more is your strategy part of it. What is the words that you want to use? What is the tonality of it that you want to use? That becomes a strategy of it. Of course, it does not mean that you will prompt an LLM ki I want a poster to be made. It will decide in front of you. But are you in control? No. If you decide on what you want and prompt it that way, it will give you an output that is your output and not an LLM output.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I think today, when we went through all the projects of all the students, whether we agreed and most of us did agree on the final outcomes, but I think the starting point of the project, what is that student that what the theme that they chose, starting from there to how they researched into it, how diverse it got in research, all that sets the tone and the base for your design project. And similarly, even with client projects, I think the most well accepted projects by the clients or by the audience that it is intended for is actually the ones that are doing justice to that groundwork that has been done. So it's really based on your thoughts, the context, the research, even the customer. I mean, everything matters, but in a certain context, in the kind of, and the craft, right? So everything builds on that one idea. And that I think can only come up, only humans can come up with these original ideas, or to make an idea that exists, but make it your own. And that's where the personality, everything we discussed as well while discussing the projects today. So definitely that holds true for AI as well.
So just one more point I'll add to both these points. So Sri mentioned context and he mentioned strategy. There's one more thing, communication, sales, right? So storytelling, especially, so that is something that still works in the age of AI. And especially because everything is now, has to be turned into prompt engineering. So the better you are able to articulate the problems, and for that you'll also have to identify the solutions broadly to the problems, right? And how well you're able to articulate and then feed it into the system to get the output will sort of make you stand out with the rest of the designer lot.
So, to excel with a basic produce a super designer, you excel in all of these.
Absolutely. So strategy, context, benefit.
Little bit physical. Some pay really enough. So, I'll take it over to part for sure.
I think all my co-panelists have covered all the points. Just one last point, that AI will give you the design which already exists. It is learning on what exists in the industry. It won't be able to create something which is, you haven't even, basically AI hasn't even thought, or no designer has fed in that information. It is LLM, right? It is learning the kind of information you'll put, whatever exists in the system. If you have to start thinking differently, if you want to create design which doesn't exist, then that is the most important role of a designer in this case. You cannot rely on AI. AI will give you something which exists, whether it exists in India and globally you might have not seen it, so it might bring in that wow factor, but there are many experts in the industry who will be able to tell you that this is AI created for sure.
Thank you so much for summing it so beautifully. And now we will move to another topic. I think, yeah, but
I just have a question. Artistic originality. Is AI helping creativity or replacing critical thinking? Because the imagination is restricted to some point, I feel.
I think if you rely too heavily on AI, I personally feel it restricts critical thinking. What is critical thinking? You're applying your mind in so many different ways that you're able to cull out certain information that works for you. AI will do that for you, but i- it's really what you do with that information. So, the ability to glean through a lot of information is also key. Not just communicating your ideas with it. So it's yeah. So, and in this age of like easily accessible information, I think that itself also is another skill. Like where do you get your information, which you will rely on, and which you will rely on enough to then create a design on. So
very true, very well put. So basically, AI is also prompting you back when that's not critical thinking. You're moving only in one direction. You're giving a prompt. It's going to talk more about just that, but you're not diversifying. So critical thinking has to happen at home, like with yourself somewhere, because otherwise you're just going down a path which is already there. Like she said earlier, AI is only going to give you what it's already seen. Even if it's putting logically things together, it's something somebody has done at some point. If you really want to innovate, you need to get back to just yourself and think.
I mean, as a build a lot of efficiency for you. For example, if you have to do research, at least 27 years back when I was in college, we used to go out, step out, and have those discussions with the target users to get that understanding. In a day, you could just do it for 4 5 people. AI brings in efficiency. It will let you kind of have those user studies, user research, uh, pulling in as much information as much possible within a day. You can collate a lot of data. It can absolutely help you with the research. But then who's gonna decode? Who's gonna synthesize? Who's gonna join the dots? Is where human intervention comes into picture. So human in the loop, we all know, would has to be there. This is where I think as human we have to keep on using a gray material. If we start relying too much on AI, that is where we start losing that ability of doing critical thinking. So it's like one is a easy path, one is where we bring in a lot of efficiency from the business perspective, from the organization perspective. We do need that time to be reduced, that duration to be reduced when delivering a project. But where it needs to be used is important. All right. Yeah. I think someone you wanted.
So,
No, I think we're done with AI. Let's move on.
one thing to sum up is if you have to see it, everything is looking same. It's not the ceiling that has increased, the floor has raised. So your starting point has changed now. So maybe if it was a different starting point, starting from scratch, maybe your starting point has already 60% of work done and you build that 40% over it. And that is what matters.
I also want to answer you said about industrial revolution and everything and how every time a certain disruption came about, people were super resistant. There was also a time when books were printed, right? And then books were burnt because they were meant, learning was only meant for a certain elite people.
Right. Also, the craft, took away the craft, it became a mass production.
Because they were hand scripted.
So,
Then they became printed, hot metal press and all that. So
every new innovation, someone loses jobs. That's a given.
yeah.
Or tweaks it.
Yeah,
Changes.
all tweaks it.
So it's adoption. If you are able to adapt, you are able to move forward.
Absolutely. So now let's just get away from AI and go on to This is more like a personal question for your own studios. And I'm just curious, when does play enter the process? Most of us are doing projects where, you just have to deliver. And how often does play enter the process?
Can I answer?
Yeah, sure.
I think I I think the best ideas come with play. That's why we do brainstorming, right? Just squiggles and no, I'm fine. And
Let's go back.
can you hear me? Okay, so I feel like the very nature of design processes and the way we learn in design schools starts with play. And I'm going to give you an example, and you're familiar with Professor Ranjan and his legendary course in foundation at NID. So this is a personal example from my student days. For that course, we were just learning design concepts and concerns, it was called. We had just learned the idea of research, physical research, collating that data, quantifying that research, and then understanding what to do with that. And then our group was coming up with some product ideas this was in foundation, so we hadn't taken our discipline. And we were just coming up with these product ideas. And some of us took very well finished product ideas, right? Like, oh, this is going to be the product and very well drawn and all that. He just sent it back and he was like, just doodle. And we don't want finished drawings, just doodle. And I think that's where play comes about, where you're just letting go of all inhibitions and this perfect sort of trying to have a perfect approach to things. So for me, brainstorming is where the play is. And then, of course, there are iterations of that in your design process. And I'm coming from an area of branding, so I'm talking from that point of view.
I think from the way how we work, a lot of things definitely go from a brainstorming perspective, but also um, understanding data is very important as well. And that is how it helps you to build over and above whatever creative thoughts that you have. So to have a cohesive product that not only visually looks good and also works well, that becomes an ultimate goal.
Okay.
Uh, Play doesn't, I think it's a mindset. Play itself is a mindset. How do you play? It could be playing through the content when you are creating a slide or a presentation of your work that needs to be presented to your end customer, to your stakeholders. When you start presenting it, you're also playing with your storytelling, your way of putting your your idea, what you had done, how you had done, why you are concluding to this specific design or a solution. You're playing around with the words. You're playing around with different stakeholders who are sitting in the room. Depending on their response, you're changing your approach also. So I think for me, play, you are doing it throughout. Through all your design stages, you are actually doing, whether it's a small interaction change that you are doing or even a small design element that you are designing. The playfulness needs to be continuously there for a designer. Otherwise, we'll become very mechanical in nature.
So that's exactly what I wanted to know. That means you're able to. I feel that most really innovative and out of the box designs really happen when you have play in it, when you have your soul in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Yes.
so that's great to hear. So is it for if kind of the same for everybody?
I mean, I think finally it depends on the nature of the project, really. I can't say that every project
Yeah,
ends up in
there are
equal
constraints. True, true.
not just constraints, also what is the kind of client, what is the brand that you're
That's what those are the constraints.
but it does start with play. You had in terms of brainstorming, that's where it's at for me. But I'm sure it plays out in other ways as well.
So I'll just encourage all the designers over here to go back and do a bit of research on how did we derive to this icon. We all know as how does this look good? You like this food, awesome. This dress, great. This course, blah blah, everything. This has become a common language, right? How did this language start?
it moved from digital to non-digital. Started with Meta, Facebook. When they first designed one icon, before designing the icon, it was like, textual, with an underline. They played with that space. They created one thumbs up icon with a different UI, with a different style, added text and the icon next to it, created embossed buttons, non embossed button, design patterns change. It was a 700 hours of activity. Can you believe that? Because somewhere the people or the group of designers that were working on it were very passionately trying to make those changes and with a very fun element to it, right? Now there's a lot of animation, micro interaction that has been added to this sign, right? So that's a very interesting thing to read about and see where the playfulness actually did it stop, it did not.
Also, I think depending on where the what the context is and how much you can actually afford to actually play. For me, at least in visual and motion design projects, I would say that play should come as soon as possible. Like you should attack a brief or take a brief in a way where you first point out what are the actual areas which I can have fun with and I can play with, and then from there you sort of just take those and take those areas, take those things about that thing, and that also kind of motivates you to do better at it, because you already starting with a version of that project which you are excited about, right? So that also sort of acts as a good sort of like a push that you need in the beginning of a project. And I think it can be interpreted in that way as well.
Beautifully said. I think it brings in a lot of excitement. The minute you want to jump on a project, do it with a lot of excitement and fun to it.
So I think, play is just so integral to us. Without that, you don't really have a good outcome. Till the time you keep the passion and the excitement on for a project, only then can you really deliver it. Because I think that's the advantage we have as designers, that we have work like that. For most people, it's not like this.
Others do envy.
Yeah, because then your work, your work doesn't remain work till the time you're playing. The moment you stop playing, it's burden. So that I think is a very important piece to keep with yourself. Now, just one more question, and I think we'll have to call it a day because I've been asked to look at the time again and again. So, okay, there are so many. Well, which one should I go to? Maybe are interfaces reducing human curiosity with predictable clicks? This is more, again, UX centric, but maybe we'll end it with this question. Would like to go.
Sure. I definitely seem to think so. And I think it is also because of in UI design, in user research, what has always been prioritized is how do you reduce the number of clicks to make a user take an action, right? And sure, it does help with actually taking actions and stuff like that, but it has also kind of taken away the joy of discovering. There are times when I still remember when I started learning understanding what a computer is. I would just go over there, go straight on and click on start and then go to programs, and then I just take a look at all the programs that are available to me and I'll just go and explore. There was no need for that thing to be hidden that deep inside, but it was still there for me to discover, and I still did that. I think that is missing. These days I think it's pretty straightforward and it has kind of taken away, but it is understandable as a business decision. I still think that it sure has done some damage.
So I think I agree with your points that it has been done away with, and largely because of everyone is chasing business KPIs and stuff, right? And I think that to the earlier question of having play in the process, I feel that all these things of keeping the interfaces curious enough for the users, and play being an important part of the whole process. It's sort of like it depends on a lot of situations. So I would call it a privilege, right? So if you are privileged enough that whoever you are designing it for, the clients, they're aware of the importance of there being curiosity in the interface, and the importance of experimenting with a lot of other unconventional layouts, then you are in a place of privilege, and you have all the liberty to explore all those kind of things. But in most cases, more often than not, the clients that we deal with in the practical world, they are all straightforward. They're chasing certain business KPIs, and that leaves us designers with very limited choices in the way we move around, right? So that's how I would put it.
Could you just repeat the question once again for me?
Could I have a mic? So the question was, are interfaces reducing human curiosity into predictable clicks?
Yes, to some extent. But I also feel that interfaces will also go off. They'll go away. It's just a matter of maybe couple of years, but I do see interfaces going off. A few of the examples that I can talk about is obviously uh, when we look at WhatsApp, we have kind of reduced typing over there using more of voice. All your prompt based engines that we are using have also we are moving to the voice. Devices are becoming more voice oriented.
True.
So interfaces will become very limited as compared to something more which is kind of expected to come across. That is what I see.
Right. Very interesting. So Minority Report is going to happen soon, sooner than later.
There was also a lovely film so ahead of its time, Her. Do you remember?
Yes, her.
Oh,
Yeah, amazing. So there, the main protagonist, is actually a letter writer because writing letters or cards became a thing of the past.
Sing of the past.
And I think he had a virtual girlfriend, and this is all before AI was a talk. It was so ahead of its time, but you can actually see that scenario playing out, which is where the human element then becomes important. Handcrafted becomes more important. And maybe as illustrators and designers, we probably need to also go back to
In
more
fact, I find
crafted work.
Right. In fact, I find a lot of very anachronistic products coming back, whether it's the gramophone in the design language, or so many old products, the old radio and all. Like,
Yeah.
you're even finding them as products for the home now. That old phone, people are very drawn to it. Yeah. It's becoming a novelty. CDs. My kids were asking for CDs this time. They were back.
Not just products, but also branded entities as well.
Right.
You see Pepsi's logo, they have, adapted it as the way it was in the 80s now.
Yeah.
And-
Craft.
and
People are going back to craft.
It's going back. You see it, we see serifs everywhere.
I feel like skill will become very important. So our own personal skills and skills, what we then get known for, and
True.
whether it's storytelling or, calligraphy or illustration. So visual design, I think that will become very, very important.
Right. The human design will become even more important.
And if you see, a lot of companies these days are launching their MCPs to connect with LLMs. Book My Show, GoIBibo, you can just prompt an LLM and it will book a ticket for you. It will do whatever things that you would want. You don't need to even go on their website. So I echo the sentiment, because long soon, of course, interfaces won't be there. It'll be just these LLMs, of course, converging together into one or maximum two, where we'll be doing maximum of our stuff, like super apps, as we see.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I just check you'll have that liberty where governance again comes into picture, where you can put in that, okay, I want to search for a holiday with almost not more than 5L. If the cost goes above 5L, do a check with me before the payment can be made through my bank. Till 5L, okay, manageable, go ahead. Make a package for me for 2 days, 3 nights or whatsoever.
that I think some of these chatbots are already doing. So yeah. In fact, all these itinerary guys have already lost their job. I think most people before a holiday are going to, chatbots to plan their holidays. So
Yeah, so right now it's more on a human intervention where we are customizing based on our need.
right.
Till the system learns what is my preference, what kind of holidays I prefer, what are my preferred months, durations. So it will start picking up from there.
Very
So we are just enabling AI to learn a bit more about us. Yes,
absolute.
so we circle back to the very first question.
Yes. So, any more questions? I think the last few questions we can take, or any more pearls of wisdom from our panel here.
There is a question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I wanted to go back, sorry, but the AI part where we talked about on the role of designer and AI is emerging. So how do we find what part of us as design students, what part should we focus on our skills and what part should we use AI to enhance those abilities? Because I take it as something that us designers with original foundation are able to do better, but the things that AI can help us enhance it.
Exploratory mindset. You should be very open for exploration. Trust me, whatever you plan today, after 3 years, the world would again change. There will be a lot of surprises coming your way. So have that flexibility, adapting to something which comes your way will only happen when you have the exploratory mindset. But again, as I said, your fundamentals become very important. The craft of understanding how even a shape is formed, what is the right definition of a shape or a color or even a icon, how it is made, you'll be able to take it forward at any space. So your foundation becomes very, very strong. You have to make it strong for yourself. You really need to go deep. Once you have understood the depth of it, then you can maneuver in any of the paths that is possible.
Yeah, but fundamentals are very important. I like
Absolutely,
this. Yeah.
absolutely,
I
absolutely.
mean, to think that this is, the basic courses, those are still very important.
Dude, I'm surviving in this industry for past 27 years purely because of that. What we studied 27 years back, a college never had a computer also. So you can imagine, and 4 years degree. So again, we are talking about almost 31 years back. First year in college. So the world was very different at that point of time.
Yeah, and at times all these softwares were non-existent. So the
Paintbrush, Photoshop 4 is what I remember we started with.
similar.
Anyways, the letter story.
Let's go back to it. Yeah. So, and anyone for any more? Yes.
What is something that the industry values today that you are personally interested with? It would be great if I could get individual answers. It could be a sequence or C.
Oh, that's a tough one. Minimalist.
Just industry values and we don't.
Mostly disagree. I disagree with the trend of minimalism. I think it's just a like a strategy to not try and be original enough. It's a very safe option. Everyone plays that. So
Had that in the question, but we don't have time.
that's me. That's me.
A lot of things. There's a lot of stress on things like keeping everything within the first fold, especially. So just yesterday, I was discussing with my team. So we were designing for this Indian client, and we were showcasing a prototype, and they wanted everything to be there on the first fold, right? And most of the clients they don't like a lot of white space in interfaces, right? So that is something that is given a lot of emphasis on by the industry people, which is personally don't agree with that at all, and lot many things like that.
Uh, we are the industry, I would say. We are the industry, right? But nevertheless, I think it is more where a lot of people or general expectations that are arising or are being set is designer's job will go away. I think it will become more powerful now because we have so many tools to assist us. So a lot of power will come into our hands, is what I feel. We'll have more time to explore a lot more different spaces, different areas, and not just worry about pixel perfections and all. That is what my tool can kind of take care for me.
I think that'll go slightly different. Generally, industry would want people these days. You will be hearing, "Do you know how to use AI?" Right? We are slightly different that way. We can train you with AI, and that's where we all have been trained. Right? We were never using AI a couple of years back. We need original thinkers, and that is where the differentiator is. That is what we look at with InfoEdge.
You want to see?
Yeah. I think I mean it's very similar. In the beginning there was this whole buzz about AI taking over all our jobs and making designers redundant. So I I think human element has just become much more important, like I said earlier. So I agree with that. In industrial design, it's a little different. So in India, we keep talking about Indian craft and how important it is. And yes, it has its place and it is very important. But I feel like as an industrial nation, we are not laying emphasis enough on manufacturing and industry in India and really honing that skill. So that's something we disagree with when we do industrial design projects where, craft is not where India's at. It should also have its manufacturing abilities right up there with China.
Definitely, that's a major lacuna right now in the country. And there is just so much need for it. And there is so much impetus from the government to get that, hole filled, but it's not happening. Then nobody has
And
really come out.
I don't agree with Jugaad.
Yeah, Jugaad is
I
Jugaad.
just don't, as a designer, this I want to do through 4 years of training and beyond. You cannot agree with Jugaad.
Absolutely. Why can't we make better strategy and sign up?
So yeah, but that is not what a designer should be doing.
Right, right. Just one insight. I just, we romanticize the word design, and it might just be blasphemous to say, okay, why not call us creators? Everything else can be, added, but it's the thinking and what we really.
I think that's where I don't know what the literal word would mean that, but that's where we see right now also everybody is the scope of work, of scope of display of everybody is widening as well.
Right.
So generally, yes, we are creators. I don't know how and who will coin that word, but yes, definitely agree to this part.
Yeah. Because it's worrisome now because all influencers are digital creators. Probably it's a little worrisome. But yes, we are all creators.
Creators is, I don't know, maybe I guess it would go through another iteration of debating whether that works or not, but it's a thought to ponder on, I feel. Yes. But thank you so much for your time, and I think it's been really interesting.